I can tell you one thing. Technology is the single most important aspect of every business that has successfully scaled.
It's time for that Real Estate Tech Guy. It's your weekly chance to explore how technology can help your real estate business explode. Each week, you'll hear from real estate investors who have been there and done that, and find out their favorite technology tips. Listen in as Jordan speaks with tech companies and learns about new technologies and new ideas that will help you scale your business. And now, join your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, CEO of Smartphone, for this week's episode.
Hey everybody, it's Jordan here with another episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. I am delighted that my co-pilot for today's episode is Darin Damme. Darin, it's fantastic to see you again, brother. Give a little intro to yourself and your companies.
What's happening, dude? We had an awesome time in Jamaica. It's really cool. You go on these masterminds and retreats, and you're not looking for new friends, and all of a sudden, there's Jordan, and who couldn't make a friend with Jordan? I am the owner. Well, so I'm an operator first and foremost, because I think that leads into everything else. And so I operate DougHopkins.com, which is based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We're at about 475 houses purchased so far this year. We've grown that company substantially. I also operate Ryan Pineda's Homerun offer in Las Vegas, along with Sean, Bob, and Monty up there, and Ryan and Noel. And through the operations, well, we needed leads. And so I have a background in radio and broadcasting, and so I started figuring out how to moneyball TV advertising and turn that into big bucks and good leads and lots of contracts. In doing that, it's kind of spread throughout the industry, and so we've created an advertising agency that specializes as a massive lead generator for real estate investors across the country. And of course, in order to be able to generate the leads and track the leads, you have to call people back, and you have to know what your lead sources are. And so I learned Salesforce, and recently teamed up with Stephanie Betters at Left Main, and we created a new long-term Salesforce development company called Main Dev Experts. So we got you covered on all fronts.
I was going to say, you're a man of many talents. Now today, what I do want to focus on for today's episode, although something tells me we'll be doing more episodes, I want to focus on the advertising because, lead gen is something, there are 400 different ways you can do lead gen. And some of them are cheap and cheerful and not effective. Some of them are cheap and cheerful and pretty effective. And some of them are like pissing money up, against a wall. And, I think one of the things that struck me when you and I first spoke about this, because television advertising has never occurred to me. And the reason being is that when I had, I have a background in marketing. And so when I had to deal with like radio advertising, I just remember the whole sales process was like the worst parts of buying a car from a used car lot,
exactly,
combined with a fucking cold caller who wouldn't let you go. And so television just struck me as it would be even worse than that. So, but you kind of educated me on your process and why television advertising can be really effective. So can you kind of, without giving away the secret sauce, so to speak, can you give a sense of why television advertising can work well for real estate investors?
Sure. The cool thing is that the secret sauce is hard work. And if you're a really good real estate investor, you should be buying houses and not sitting up until midnight doing spreadsheets, comparing your leads to the commercials that played and trying to allocate which lead came from which commercial and all that. I'm not a real estate guy. I actually did radio for 20 years here in Arizona in the United States. And in doing so, I shared an office with the salespeople. And so I saw exactly how they were. And you described it perfectly. They're car salesmen. Their whole goal is just to get as much money out of you as possible, tell you everything that you want to hear. And 8 out of 10 times they would, take $10, $20, $30, $100,000 from a client they'd play the commercials, they'd follow through on what they said, but there was no strategy to it. And then the client would cancel, after that campaign was done. I knew that was happening. And so when I went to work with Doug, I came in with a fresh outlook in that I really wanted leads. I didn't want commercials. And so what I did is I went in and I took we were already using an advertising agency. And so I asked the advertising agency, and he foolishly did so, to send me the list of all of the commercials that had played for the year. And then I took all of our leads because I was the operator, and I made sure that I knew the correct date and time that all the leads came in, what phone number they called. And then I also tracked, of course, the appointments, the conversions, the profit, and income. And what I did is I wound up creating a database and went through and I attributed the leads to specific commercials. And when I put them together, I noticed that there were patterns. And now, that data sheet is probably 100,000 lines long. But in going through and doing so, you realize, hey, this specific TV commercial on these specific days generated leads for me. And then knowing the back end of how they sell, I knew that they're going to try to sell you one rate Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to midnight. It's $250, and we're going to play it wherever we can, and we'll call you in 3 months. And I wasn't going to do that because I knew that it was all based on demand. And so, for example, the elections are just wrapping up here in the United States. Well, in that case, you have billions of dollars that are going to advertising, and so it's going to run up the price of the commercials. So a commercial that may have been $100 or $200 6 months ago may be $1,500 the week or two before the election. So it doesn't make sense to buy it at that point, unless, of course, that commercial is generating 5, 10, 15 leads for you. Then, so there's that buy box. And so what you have to decide is, like I give you just a plain example. Let's say, and we get the rate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from every TV station, and we buy every 2 weeks instead of quarterly. So let's say a commercial was $100 this week, and we had purchased 10 previously, and we got 10 leads out of those 10 commercials. Well, then my cost per lead would be $100 per lead. So, that's simple. Now, if it goes up to $200 that week, then technically I'm paying $200 per lead because there's basically a 100% chance that I'm going to get one lead for that one commercial. If it goes to $1,500 in a week, then it's a $1,500 cost per lead, and I'm not interested. So on a weekly basis, we have an algorithm now, and we created an app, and we're uploading everything into the cloud, and it's computing everything. It literally just tells us, we put in the rates, we have the historical information, and it says, here's the commercials you want to buy with this budget. And it's the best buys for that time period. But again, it's not based just solely on cost per lead. Really what we need to worry about is how much money we're taking home. And so you also track the quality of the leads, the appointments, the conversions. And so we can go through, I'll give you a very quick example. As you can tell, as a radio talk show host, so you can go grab some coffee, go walk the dog, come back in 45 minutes, and I'll still be talking. But basically what we did is we tracked the quality of the lead as well. And by going through and doing that, let's say the 5 p.m. news. Okay, now think about it logically. You get a better response on different days. So what day of the week do you think would be the worst commercial to buy for the 5 o'clock news? Friday. Because what happens on Friday? Nobody goes home from work. They're all going out to happy hour or taking their wife to dinner or whatever. So, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be very good days to do that. So when you start running these numbers and tabulating, you go, oh, why was I ever buying that commercial that I bought 45 times and I never got a lead from it? Well, let's not buy it again. So we use that. I call it moneyballing. Because that's what we do. We figure out the best odds. We figure out what our odds are of getting a lead for the price. and then we buy the best commercials for the return.
I was struck, actually. I know when you did your intro, you talked a bit about running or working with Ryan, and because he's in Vegas, isn't he?
Yes.
I met Ryan at the last year's Tab event, not this year's where I met you, but Ryan was last year I met him.
Yeah.
And but one thing that I was struck is I saw a post he did on Instagram where he specifically highlighted you, and he was talking about the ways that television advertising has been super effective for him in his markets, and that really made me think, because that was before we were going to record this. It really made me think about, are there markets? Are you able to work in almost any market? First of all, is one question, and the second question is, do you have a sense of messaging that works per market, or do you need to be careful on the messaging per market? In my background from marketing, I would almost always say the message has to get tweaked for the market or for the outcome you want. There is very little universal that works aside from, like some really base things. What are your feelings on sort of, can it work in almost any market? Can you work in any market? And how much does the messaging have to change?
So let me go back really quick to one of your first comments that you made, and that's with Ryan Pineda. That guy, I've told people this before, and this is why I really wanted to spend the time to work with him. He was one of our first clients, and I remember when he was just getting rolling with wholesaling. If I had to put $100,000 on one person that I know that I think is going to be a billionaire, that is going to be just bigger than anybody financially, it's Ryan Pineda. The guy is a genius. He is a workaholic, but he also has an incredible work-family balance. He's somebody that is probably 15 years younger than me, but I learn from every single day, and I respect the heck out of him. Everything he sets his mind to, he achieves, and he overexcels. And so just love that guy. And if you guys aren't following him yet, that's a guy to watch. He's incredible. When it comes to the commercials, I understand where you're coming from a marketing perspective about the messaging. Can it work everywhere? Yes, for real estate, it has worked everywhere because everybody has a house to sell. And there's the same problem where there are people who need our services. If they need to sell quick, they need to know that their house is going to close. They need, the convenience maybe of leaving a house in as is condition. And so in every single market out there, I would even venture to say in Europe and everywhere else, even though we just do the United States and Canada at this point. But people have to move, and people need, I don't look at us as house buyers. I look at us as problem solvers. And so there's people with problems that need help. And if you take the time to become a problem solver for them, those are the people the investors who really become successful. From a messaging standpoint, yeah, there may be a different message between the United States and Europe, and I don't know what your real estate laws are, or ownership and all that other stuff. And also the fact, even just regionally here in the United States, I live in Arizona. Most houses were built here from 1960 and newer. You live in Europe where there's houses that are 500 years old. So there is a bit of a difference there. And even regionally here in the United States, in the Northeast, our houses are older and they have basements and they're plaster. Every house in the United States, every house in Arizona is tile stucco. We got a little bit of a termite problem, but nothing that hurts the houses that bad. You just get a $300 treatment. There's not tornadoes. There's not flooding. There's just hot. That's it. So our message really across the United States, we found that the simpler the message is, that it works. And it always kind of goes back to our OG commercial, which a lot of people have seen, where it goes, "I'm Doug Hopkins and I want to buy your house." Doesn't matter what condition it is in. It could be a total fixer-upper in perfect condition. There is no house I won't buy. There's no commissions, no closing costs, no repairs. You know, you just list off, hey, here's why you want to come to me. I think that the message has to be super simple so that people can remember it. I don't think you want to be too cute with it. I just don't see those working as much. The same way that we track the commercial, the leads, we also track the different commercials that we run to the leads.
So you A/B test. In essence, you're A/B test. So if you're able to not only you're not only moneyballing the time slots and and the programming that it goes against, which I'm assuming the variables are a number of things. There's a creative variable, there's a time variable, and there's an audience based per show probably variable.
You bet.
Right? A demographic per show. And so you're essentially compiling all the numbers and all of those, and you're able to then zero in so that if I want you to work with me in my market, you're able to zero in and be like, great, we know that we want this creative in these time slots with these demographics. That's going to get you the best ratio of cost per lead and lead conversion opportunity that you're going to get, right? That's kind of that's the method that you're going to go through. Now, out of curiosity, if someone's going to sign up and start, or someone wants to know how to get started with this, is there a time, do you have to run it for a bit if it's a new market to find out? Or is it pretty much,
The crazy thing about it is, and I don't want to give the false impression that you need to hire a big call center and your phones you're gonna get hundreds of calls a day. It doesn't work like that. But it starts immediately. And it does build up over time because people start to learn your brand, and not everybody needs to sell their house today. Maybe they get a new job in a month or in a year, or maybe a parent passes away and they inherit a house or whatever. So we've been running in Arizona since 2014. So we're 8 years into it. And we're actually still closing leads that came in 2016, 2017. That's the other thing. You got to be a heck of an operator. You can run commercials and get leads. And if you don't answer the phones, you don't call people back, you don't set appointments, you don't have, multiple ways of dispo. That's something that's new here in the United States, where the last 2 years, anybody could start a real estate company and make a lot of money because the prices were going up so high so fast that you could buy a house for retail value and 3 months later make $30,000 on it. It's changing now. Now you need to look at creative financing. You need to look at subject twos. You need to look at novations, which, by the way, Eric Brewer is phenomenal at novations. Love that guy. He was one of my very first clients ever, and he's still on. That's the cool thing is once people come on, we're like, they don't come off. If they run a good org, they don't come off because they're converting. It works. The great thing with you starting off new is I got clients all around you. So I already have the data. So you sign on in a city and chances are within 100 miles, I've got 4 or 5 clients all around you. So I already know what works in that region. And we get to go in. We don't even have to start with the shotgun approach. We take, we know in this city that this works really, really, really good. This city is 100 miles away with almost like Vegas and Phoenix. Like what works in Phoenix works in Vegas. And the same kind of houses are in both markets too. And that's why I called Ryan early in the year and I was like, brother, give me the keys to your company. And through this change, let's work together because we got the same buyers, the same houses, the same TV commercials, the same everything. If we run this together, we can take the best of both companies and really turn this into a monster. When you sign up, we already know what works. Now your buy box is gonna change as the results come in, and we're going to tailor it even more. But you might be surprised. First day, you might get 5 or 6 leads. And
just before we go into I have a series of fast 5 questions we sort of close out with. Before we get to that, in terms of if someone, getting started and all of that, there's a creative element that most people don't have. No people don't have a television commercial, let alone an A/B tested one, in their back pocket. So obviously you have a format that works, but everybody's got a different, they've got different people, they got different brands, etc. Do you have the ability to pull together? Is it a turnkey operation so you can do all of that creative as well? They don't have to come to you and be like, I've got this commercial?
Well, if they have a commercial and they like it, we could certainly use that. But for the most part, most people that come to us have never been on TV before. And so we'll help them. It goes down to the website too. You got to look at your website. We got to make sure that it's converting properly. We got to make sure that the right, brands are up there. We got to make sure you're using the right URL. You're not using I buy houses in the USA for low cost.com that nobody's ever going to remember. It's DougHopkins.com. It's HomerunOffer.com. If Jim's Aspo, it's selltojim.com. And when we do sell to Jim, it's SELL, the number 2, Jim, and SELLTO, Jim. It's just simplifying the entire thing, and making sure that when we do get those leads, because you're paying a lot of money for them, that we do everything that we can to get that appointment as quickly as possible. Then we also open up our playbook as to how we do things and how we operate. And so, we're sending you our email templates for follow-ups. We're going in and showing you what we do with Salesforce, whether you're on Podio or Salesforce or another CRM. That's the whole goal, because if you're successful, then we're successful, and you spend more money and we all win.
Yeah, and I think the critical thing there that you point out, and I believe this is the thing that people need to look at more than anything else when they start thinking about lead gen, is if you don't have the operation to trail that lead gen, you can spend all the money and get all the leads you want in the world. But if you can't effectively work those leads, make sure that you are doing everything you need to close those leads, then essentially you are wasting money, because you're going to be spending a lot of money on leads that you're dropping all the time. So your consultative approach also gives them help and guidance on, hey man, great, we know we can get you leads, but let me show you some of the things you're going to need on the back end of this.
Yes. There's never a worse phone call than somebody calling in saying, hey, I spent, X number of dollars. I got 175 leads and 3 appointments. They're like, how did you do that? You're like, what do you mean? Well, I couldn't get in touch with 90% of them. Well, you didn't answer the phone calls. And what people don't understand is, I can even give you numbers here in Phoenix. For phone calls that come in that you answer live, there's 100% chance you're going to talk to the person. They're ready to do something right at this moment. And so then you set the appointment and you get in person right in front of them, take a contract. I mean, we time our lead to appointment down to the hour. Like, we want to know, make it as short as possible. And they don't answer the calls. They don't set appointments or anything. And they say your leads suck. And I'm like, man, I could take those. Give me those 175 leads.
I'll buy them back.
I'll get 10 deals out of it. I'll probably actually we do about a 10% lead to contract rate in Phoenix on TV leads. And this is where it really gets into Moneyball. And we did this over the past couple of years. I knew that 1 out of every 10 TV leads became a deal. Okay. And each deal, when I took the total number of deals and divided it, by the total amount of income, came out to $29,000 per deal. So 1 out of every 10 leads becomes a $29,000 deal. So my cost per lead over the past couple of years, because the real estate market got hot and people in Arizona didn't need to sell to a wholesaler. They could sell their house even if it needed repairs for full price over the course of a weekend. But there were people that needed to know it was going to sell and everything. So I needed to cast a wider net. So we opened up our budget from maybe $20,000 a week to $80,000 a week. I mean, we spent a lot of money. And I did it without telling the owner. We went to high school together and we're best friends. And he didn't want to raise the budget, but I get paid based on our profit. And so I did it knowing 1 out of every 10 leads became a deal worth $29,000. When our cost per lead went $300, $500, $800, I think $850 was the highest. Well, if 1 out of 10 becomes a contract, my cost per acquisition is $8,500. My deals are worth $29,000 each. I'm making $20,500 for every contract that I make. Like, imagine going to the roulette wheel and knowing that 1 out of every 10 times it was going to hit your number. Like, you would take every penny you had.
I would roll every day
As much as you could. But what happens to most people is they'll go 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and it doesn't hit, and they'll chicken out and walk away. Well, it was going to hit her 8, 9, or 10. And so what you have to do is you have to just believe in the stats, but that means you have to have accurate reporting. And you have to be on top of your people and make sure that they're answering the calls and setting the appointments and be on top of your acquisitions. Well, we went from, I want to say, $3.1 million in 2019 to $5.1 million, and this is gross revenue, in 2020, to $14 million in 2021, for a net of about $10 million. And it was just moneyballing it, man. I knew my number was coming up 1 out of every 10 times. And so by doing that, and by also taking the chance and knowing what was going to happen, I was able to actually basically tell my owner, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say, insubordination, and triple his budget, spend his money, knowing damn good and well what the return was going to be, because I was in charge of all aspects of his company. And so we had an incredible year, and we kept it going, and we've been keeping going. Really quick, and I hope I'm not taking too much of your time, but in this time of change, the two things that people look at are ROI and cost per lead. It's the wrong thing to look at. You have to look at it as an outsider. It's how much money am I making? And people got really spoiled over the past couple of years, and they say, well, if I'm not making 4 times ROI, like, do you buy houses that way? So you wouldn't pay $100,000 for a house that you could sell for $200,000? I would do that all day long. I mean, you're doubling your money. And so what you really need to look at is scalability. You need to look at your operations, but you need to look at how much money you're putting in your pocket, and then make the decisions that way. People right now, because their income is going down, we went from $29,000 to $19,000 per deal or year over year. So what do most people do? They cut their budgets. But hey, even if my cost per lead was still $800, which it isn't, now it's back down to $400. So my cost per acquisitions is $4,000, and I'm at $19,000, $20,000, whatever. I'm still making $15,000 a deal. But these knuckleheads want to cut their budgets because, we're getting crushed. And it's like, no, you're not. That's actually when you double your budget and go after more. So that's something people really need to think about, because they're ensuring that they're going to get their butts kicked.
Well, and I tell you, just before we close out this, the kind of Moneyball approach, I mean, obviously you're using this in the advertising realm, but one of the things I preach around CRM, CRM management, is if you have all the data properly done in your CRM, you can Moneyball everything in essence, because you can reverse engineer a goal so easily if you understand what it takes. If I have data that shows me, okay, this many leads means this many appointments, means this many under contracts, means this many closed, means this much revenue. If I have data that shows me that, accurate data, I can reverse that and say, I want to do 5 million next year. What do I have to do down to the calls per day I need to be making? Or whatever advertising channel I'm doing, I can do this if I have the data. And that's what I love about your approach to this is, it is a surgical understanding of the odds and of what is going to pay off results that anybody can do if they just make sure they have the data. Now, Darin, I got to close this out. Now, I'm going to do a modified Fast 5. So I've got the real estate tech guy Fast 5 questions. I'm going to modify it slightly for you, because most of the times when I talk to a lead gen or it's about specific software. And you're
Yeah.
kind of more of a service slash. So I'm going to modify the questions. It may not be all 5 of them, but I'm going to call an audible on this. So question number 1, fast questions, fast answers. Question number 1, what's the biggest mistake most people will make if they're approaching television advertising?
They won't spend enough. Because small stats equal very inconsistent numbers. You got to spend enough, and you got to get bigger numbers, and you'll see your consistency.
Question number 2, what's your best advice on how someone can get started in the television advertising game? You know, they want to start doing advertising for the first time.
Send an email to Darin, Darin, at bullseye-branding.com. Seriously, if you go and you try to do it on the cheap and you try to find somebody that just does a shotgun approach, you're going to get your butt kicked. We are the best. There's no question about it.
You're going to spend a lot of money and get shit returned.
Yeah.
If you just do it. You're going to do what I used to do at the radio stations, marketing, where you would go and you get some sales guy saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you 40 slots, and we're going to run it this many times. It's going to be $5,000," and you end up getting nothing because they slot it anywhere they want, and they don't really care about anything but getting you to sign that paper.
I'm buying the premium commercials. You're getting what I don't want if you don't go through us.
Yeah. And final question, I'm like I said, I've called it audible. I'm doing a slightly different one. Now take this broader than just advertising. If you've got, because you've got a lot of experience with wholesaling, with different type of real estate, you're talking to someone who's trying to get into real estate investment. What are 3 bits of technology that you would recommend they bring in first?
3 bits of technology. Well, I do it all the time because we have people that are trying to level up in doing so. I would say your CRM is the most important thing because it's your database, and if you've got different spreadsheets and everything else like that, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. So I would say call Stephanie at Left Main and definitely get Salesforce. The biggest advantage of that is it's already preset, and it's half the cost of if you did Salesforce yourself. And then you've got a lot of people that can help you. You don't have to make the same mistakes twice. I've seen phone systems all over the place. There is no, I think if there's a perfect phone system, it's a unicorn because everybody has different needs and wants. But from what I've seen, and I've seen probably 20 or 30 different phone systems, smartphone definitely is the one that I advise everybody to get on. It's simple. It's easy to use. It's integrated with Salesforce and Podio. That's another thing. The third thing that I would say, you need those 2 things, and you need people. And you need curious people. You don't need order takers. You need people who ask questions. Why? Why did that happen? Why didn't I get that appointment? Why did we get that deal? What more can we do? Here's the biggest problem. Most real estate investors are mavericks. They're not organized. They're great salespeople, and no great salesperson is really truly organized. You need an integrator, and too many people think that they can do it all themselves. You need to find somebody, and they don't have to be in real estate, who just is curious but integrates and makes things happen.
Awesome. For the final closeout, remind everybody how they can reach you. I'll make sure it's on all the different channels.
Probably the easiest way is through email. Once again, it's DARIN at Bullseye, BULLSEYE -branding.com. I actually bought it without the hyphen, but I haven't integrated all of our emails together yet. So I'm sitting here preaching on simplification, and I've got a freaking hyphen. That's probably the easiest way. If you just send me an email, I can get you set up. I want to say one more thing on smartphone, and this is probably the biggest thing, but this also goes back to real estate. The best thing I like about smartphone is when I have a question, there's people that I can speak with, and your tech people and your support people are awesome, and they answer the phone or they talk on the chat and they get things taken care of right away. the most important thing that any real estate investor can do. The most important person in your company is your lead managers, the people that answer the phones and the people that talk to the leads. And 90% of the real estate companies, that's like the janitor. It's the bottom rung that you don't invest in. And that's the most foolish mistake you could possibly make, because you don't get deal. They touch every ball. They're the quarterback of your team. Use people from your region. Have people that go, oh my gosh, yeah, my parents live right down the street. You're building that relationship. You're getting that appointment. It's the reason why I love smartphone. It's the reason why I love other companies. And it's the reason why people will love you if you're a real estate investor trying to purchase houses, is that you have people that can speak the same vibe and create that's the face of your company. The most important person on your staff. Take care of those people. And if you don't, I'm going to hire them, because those are the people that I need in Phoenix and Vegas and for my clients. Like I can't find the ones that we need, so take care of those people.
Absolutely. Darin, what a great way to end. Been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And everybody, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealeestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.